Every few months, the headlines return like clockwork. China is preparing for war, and an invasion of Taiwan is imminent. The mental picture is always the same: missiles, amphibious landings, and an expansive military push across the strait. But Singaporean diplomat Kishore Mahbubani argues that this focus on kinetic war overlooks Beijing's actual methodology. He suggests their strategy relies on long-term structural shifts, advantages that may make a sudden military conflict unnecessary. The discrepancy comes down to how we measure time. While Western political analysis often operates on 2 to 5 year election cycles, Beijing operates on what Mahbubani calls a civilizational timeline, measuring progress in decades rather than seasons. To understand how this changes the strategy, we have to look at the structural data. In 1990, Taiwan's GDP was 45% the size of China's. Today, Taiwan represents less than 5%. As China's economy expanded, it generated a powerful economic gravity, naturally drawing regional trade and supply chains into its orbit. From this perspective, time inherently favors Beijing. Rushing into a chaotic amphibious invasion contradicts their strongest structural advantage. Today, Taiwanese citizens travel the globe using a Republic of China passport, granting them access to roughly 180 countries. But if Taiwan crosses Beijing's red line and declares formal independence as the Republic of Taiwan, that access would vanish. Mahbubani estimates that only 5 or 6 nations would officially recognize the new state. Most governments would avoid recognition for purely practical reasons. China is currently the largest trading partner for over 120 countries. When forced to choose between a symbolic alignment with Taiwan and severe economic consequences from Beijing, economic exposure almost always wins out. We can look at the Persian Gulf to see how this kind of asymmetric leverage works in practice. Iran doesn't match the United States in conventional military power, but it rarely tries to. By using cheap drones and mines to harass narrow maritime transit routes, they've successfully disrupted a choke point handling 20% of global trade. Modern geopolitics rewards this type of targeted leverage over head-to-head combat. You don't need the world's best navy if you can control the access points. Applying that logic to the Taiwan Strait presents a very different scenario than troops storming a beach. Instead, Beijing could impose a total air and naval blockade, declaring the surrounding waters strictly off-limits. The effects would hit immediately. Shipping lanes would reroute, maritime insurance costs would spike, and supply chains would freeze overnight. This exposes Taiwan's most critical structural vulnerability. The island imports roughly 97% of its energy, relying heavily on specialized shipments of liquefied natural gas, coal, and oil to keep its grid running. Under a severe blockade, this creates a strict countdown. Taiwan's essential liquefied natural gas reserves would be completely depleted in under 2 weeks. Without firing a single shot, a blockade starves the island of the energy it needs to function, acting much faster than external allies could organize a military response. The immediate question is why external superpowers wouldn't simply deploy their own navies to break the blockade and resupply the island. The answer lies in systemic economic deterrence. Breaking a Chinese blockade guarantees direct great power confrontation, and no major power wants to risk a conflict that spirals into a global war. This risk is tied to industrial capacity. In 2000, China accounted for a 6% sliver of global manufacturing. Today, it's a dominant 30%. By 2030, projections show it reaching 45%, exceeding the combined production of the US, Japan, Germany, India, and South Korea. These factories produce the essential technologies of the modern economy. China sits at the core of global supply chains, manufacturing everything from EV batteries and pharmaceuticals to solar panels and rare earth components. Attempting to forcibly decouple these supply chains over a standoff in Taiwan would trigger systemic global shocks. It would mean immediate hyperinflation, frozen industrial production, and severe economic disruption worldwide. By making its industrial output absolutely critical to the world economy, Beijing has made the cost of military intervention prohibitively expensive. In the 21st century, the ultimate weapon of deterrence is structural dependency.